Hello, my dear students. Welcome to Teacher at Home. Today class we are going to learn the third chapter, Man and Media. The story of messages. Nowadays, when we want to communicate with either email, a person or send SMS, everything happens by the clicking of a mouse or the pressing of a few buttons. It was not so in the near past. Most people wrote letters, put them in an envelope and got them stamped, dropped them in a post box and waited patiently to hear from the other person. Way back in the 1850s, the letters went on horseback from the east to the west of America. One freight company decided to speed things up by hiring 80 men to take the mail to the west on horseback. In 1860, the Pony Express was formed. The riders of the Pony Express were chosen for the light weight as well as the riding ability. Most of them were young boys. The route they undertook was a rugged one. It went from St. Joseph, Missouri, to Sacramento, California, a distance of over 1,800 miles. Each rider rode a total of 75 miles, changing ponies at different stations. The mail was carried in four leather boxes, which were attached to a special saddle blanket thrown over the saddle. The changing of ponies was done in 2 minutes. The speed was a bonus because it cut the average delivery time from several weeks to about 10 days. The fastest trip was made in 7 days and 17 hours. This record was set by the rider carrying President Abraham Lincoln's first message to the US Congress. The poor riders had to ride through unknown terrains. Some routes exposed them to attack from Red Indians and led them dangerous territories. Newspaper advertisements for riders listed one important requirement: offense preferred. Though exciting, the Pony Express was a short lived experiment. It lasted for only 19 months. By then, there was a telegram line from coast to coast. This was definitely a faster way of sending messages, but the invention of the radio brought in a great revolutionary change in the field of communication. The Hindu Young World. The radio. The radio is just over 100 years old. It was Marconi who invented an instrument to send the wireless message. He sent the first radio message in 1895. This marked the birth of the radio. It was in fact developed from the telegraph, which was invented by Cooke and Wheatstone in 1835. Later, it was perfected by Morse. The word telegraph is derived from the two Greek words telos, which means distant, and grapho, which means to write. Invention of the telephone by Alexander Graham Bell in the year 1876 was another revolutionary step in the field of communication. It became more popular because the person at the other end could hear the speaker's voice. Let me see the cartoon, please. I must see the cricket match. I have my favorite serial now. Let me see it. It's time to Ramayana. I want to see it. The television. The television is one of the miracles of science. It is not an ID box, but a magic carpet. Do you know who invented the television? It was a Scotsman named J.L. Baird. Baird made it possible to present moving and living pictures of men and events on the screen. In those days, it was only in monochrome. The color television became popular in the 1970s. Its vast potentialities as a powerful medium of mass communication cannot be underestimated. It is indeed one of the best sources of entertainment and enlightenment for all. Programs on subjects like health and hygiene, nutrition, family planning, and agriculture are of immense help to men and women, especially in rural areas. The television play a very significant role in educating the farmers on the use of different kinds of fertilizers and pesticides and new methods of cultivation. In addition to giving villagers professional guidance, television can present a whole variety of cultural programs as well. Man is born in the stream of culture. Invention of the television has enabled him to enjoy and see with his own eyes the culture of different people living in different communities. This medium of audio-visual communication has a very powerful appeal. It can therefore be used for educational purpose also. Lessons on science, mathematics, geography, and other disciplines are often telecast. In order to educate the public, more programs on traffic rules, health and hygiene, law and order problems, etc. are also to be included. The TV program usually deal with many other subjects and topics on current importance. A man after a day's hard work may switch on his television set and derive immense pleasure. He feels gently relieved after the day's fatigue. These four things entertain, influence, educate, and inform. Short description of J.L. Byrd's life, work, career, etc. is given below. Born August 13, 1888. Place Helensburgh, Scotland. Education Lemon School, University of Strathclyde, First World War interrupted his studies. Occupation Superintendent Engineer, Cedar Valley Electrical Power Company. Invention in February 1924, first transmission of a semi-mechanical analog television system. 1921, set up the Wire Television Development Company Limited from 1929 to 1935. The BBC telecast program using the 30-line band system. Death 1946. The newspaper. The world moves very fast and events happen very quickly in every sphere of life. People keep in close touch with the latest developments by reading newspapers. The newspaper is a pioneer in the field of mass media. The first newspaper was published in Britain in 1702. It became popular only in the 1890s. Nowadays, the newspaper has become almost as necessary as food and clothing. The primary function of the newspaper is to provide news of all kinds. Millions of copies are printed, read, and discussed every day in our country. The statesman is anxious to know the latest developments in the political sphere. The businessmen want current information about market conditions. The common man has a natural curiosity to know about almost everything in general. A successful newspaper caters to the needs of all kinds of readers, scientists, sportsmen, politicians, businessmen, lawyers, and job seekers. Besides being informative, newspapers possess literary value too. They contain articles, commentaries, book reviews, stories, poems, biographies, etc. The editorial and lead articles in a newspaper exert much influence on its readers. They inform and mold public opinion. Businessmen can advertise in the newspaper and thus reach their customers. The press has a sacred responsibility. Its news and views could be true and impartial. The press also serves as a platform where the reader can express his individual and independent views on any burning issue of the day. The newspaper updates our knowledge of the world around us. But we should not blindly believe everything that is printed in the newspaper. News stories may at times be exaggerated or distorted. Yet the newspaper has a very significant role in promoting national integration. Several advertisements are seen in the newspaper. We come to know about various products through them. Catchy title, emotional language, limited words. Limitations of a TV and newspaper are mostly compensated by the computer. Computer as well as the internet has brought the world closer. Computerized education soon in India. News, computer assisted language learning called computer training for villages, computer to aid better milk supply, national network of police computers proposed, electronic voting machine for election, computer to record crimes have been used in Indian census, bank work to be computerized booking system in railways, wildlife on computers. The computer has become a part of the media only in recent years. In the 1960s and 70s, computers were mostly used by big companies and businessmen. Very few people could buy a computer to be used at home. In the 1890s and 80s and 90s, there were an incredible growth in computer sales. Popularity of the internet, the World Wide Web, and the email have made computer inevitable in the modern world. Have you ever thought about the advantages of the internet? It helps millions of people to communicate with each other quickly and cheaply. Moreover, it enables quick access to knowledge. How did man come to invent the computer? Man learned to count long ago, but the first calculating device he invented seemed to have been the abacus. It is a wooden frame with horizontal rods, wires carrying beads. The counting is done by moving the beads one by one along the rods and wires. The first mechanical anchoring machine was made by Pascal in France improved upon by Leibniz in Germany. But it was Charles Babbage of England who had made the first calculating machine called the different engine. 1822. Later he designed the even more powerful analytical engine, but could not get it made. Its basic design is markedly similar to the modern electronic computer. The processing of data with mechanical machines started with the 1890 US Census. It was done with punched cards and tabulating machines designed and made by Herman Hollerith. Later, this machine came to be used in business, industry, the government processing data. The first electronic computers were made in the late 40s in the USA, Germany, and England. ENIAC made in the USA is the best known among these first generation computers. Invention of the transistor in 1948 led to the making of the second generation machines in the 50s. Then came the third generation in the 60s with the machines using integrated circuit, the invention of the microprocessor. 1971 brought the fourth generation. With each new generation, computers have become more powerful, more reliable, small in size and cheaper. The fifth generation promised by the Japanese is yet to come. Books. What worlds of wonder are our books? As one opens them and looks, new ideas and people rise in our fancies and our eyes. The room we sit in melts away, and we find ourselves at play. Someone who before the end may become our chosen friend. Or we sail along the page to some other land or age. Here's our body in the chair, but our mind is over there. Each book is a magic box which with a touch a child unlocks. In between these outside covers, books hold all things for their lovers. Poila was a literate woman. She couldn't even write her name. Poila's husband, however, was a responsible government official. He had once been a simple peasant, but 5 years in the city had taught him to a lot, not only how to write his name, but also how to be a successful officer. However, he was not very happy to have a illiterate wife. Poila, you ought to at least learn how to write your name, he used to say to his wife. My last name is an easy one, two syllables, Kachkin, and still you can't write it. I wish you would learn. Poila used to wave it aside. There's no use in my trying to learn it now, Ivan, she would answer. I'm getting old. My fingers are getting stiff. Why should I try to write now? Let the young ones learn how to read and write. Poila's husband was a terribly busy man and did not have the time to argue with his wife, so he kept his mouth shut. But one day, Ivan Nikolaevich Kuchkin did bring home a special little book. Here, Poila, he said, is the latest Teach Yourself Russian, which is based on up to date methods. I am going to show you how to use it. Poila gave a quiet laugh, took the book in her hands, turned it over, and hid it in the cupboard as if to say, let it be here. Maybe our grandchildren will have some use for it. One day, Poila sat down to work. She had to mend a jacket for Ivan. The sleeve was torn. So Poila sat down at the table, looked up her needle, and put her hand under the jacket. She heard something rustling. Maybe there's money in her, Poila thought. She looked inside and found a letter. It was a nice clean one with a neat handwriting. The paper smelled of perfume, and it was in a blue envelope. Poila became pale. Was Ivan in love with another woman? Was he exchanging love letters with well educated ladies and making fun of his poor, illiterate wife? Poila looked at the envelope, took out the letter, and unfolded it. Since she was illiterate, how could she read it? For the first time in her life, Poila was sorry that she had not learned how to read and write. Even though it is somebody else's letter, she thought, I have got to know what is in it. Maybe it will change my whole life. Maybe Ivan loves another woman. Maybe I will have to go back to the country and work as a peasant. Poila started to cry and began thinking about how Ivan seemed to have changed lately. He seemed to be taking more care of his mustache and his clothes. Poila sat looking at the letter. She kept crying and sniffing. but could not read it at all. To show it to someone else would be unthinkable. Poila hid the letter in the cupboard, finished sewing the jacket, and waited for Ivan to come home. When he returned, Poila did not let him know that anything had happened. On the contrary, in the calm and even voice, she told her husband that she had nothing against doing a little studying and that she was fed up with being an ignorant, illiterate peasant. Ivan Nikolaevich was overjoyed to hear it. That's just fine, and said, I must myself will teach you how to read and write. All right, go ahead, said Poila as she started fixed at Ivan's clipped with little mustache. For 2 silent months, Paula studied every day. She patiently put together the words, learned to form the letters, memorized sentences. Every evening, she took the treasured letter out of the cupboard and tried to find out the secret meaning. But it was no easy job. It was the 3rd month before Paula learned how to read. One morning, when Ivan Nikolaevich had gone off to work, Paula took the letter out of the cupboard and started reading it. It was hard for her to understand the small handwriting, but the silent scent of perfume from the paper pushed her on. The letter was addressed to Ivan Nikolaevich. Dear friend, I am sending you the book I promised. I think that your wife should be able to learn how to read in 2 or 3 months. Promise me, old boy, that you will make her do it. Explain to her, make her feel how disgusting it is to be illiterate women. Make sure you don't forget to teach her to read and write. Ivan Nikolaevich. With greetings, Maria. Paula read this letter through twice. Then, pressing her lips and together sadly and feeling somehow secretly insulted, she burst into tears. Amusement, the feeling of being entertained. Anxious, worried. Appeal, request. Cater to provide what is necessary. Contrary, opposite. Derive to get something. Device, an instrument. Discard, to give up. Distorted, change from the original form. Enlighten, to provide information for better understanding. Entertainment, activities that certain entertain people. Exaggerate, to go beyond the truth in describing something. Exert, to use power to effect. Fatigue, tiredness, weakness. Fright, goods that are carried from one place to another. Hygiene, cleanliness to preserve health. Ignorant, not having enough knowledge. Illiterate, someone who has not learned how to read and write. Immense, great, large in size. Impartial, neutral. Incredible, difficult to believe. Inevitable, unavoidable. Lately, recently. Mold to shape. Nutrition, the right type of food for good health. Poor nutrition can cause anemia. Peasant, someone who works on the land. Pesticide, chemical substance used to kill harmful insects. Potentiality, ability. Rigging, dishonest way of influencing to get desired results. Rugged, wild and not even. Rustle, slight sound made by something rubbing together. Sacred, deserving respect. Saddle, a seat often made of leather used on horseback. Significant, having an important effect of influence. Terrain, an area of land. Treasured, valued highly. Underestimate, to fail to guess or understand the real cost of value. We should never underestimate our fellow beings. So that's all about this chapter. If you are interested, please do like, share, and subscribe my channel. Okay, thank you.